Here we go. The first step is the same as yesterday. But remember I told you yesterday that this value in front will not be 1 anymore. Okay, so what happens when that's the case? You still do what multiplies to 3 times 8 now. Yesterday that 3 was a 1, so it was pretty easy. But what is 3 times 8? 24. You're okay? It adds to this middle piece. So this is the adding piece right here. It adds to negative 10. Now, again, some of you will be able to just tell me those right away. Please don't shout it at me. I'm going to walk you through how to do this table one more time for those that really need to understand the table. Some of you still, I think, need help with that. Go in order. Please don't do 1 divided by 24. I've seen that a lot lately. It's the opposite. 24 divided by 1 is 24. That's not going to add or subtract to get 10 ever. Let's try 2. 2 and 12. We're getting close. You can see that that's pretty close to 10. Okay, 2 and 12. Okay, they might add and subtract to get 10. Okay, there's also another pair. We have to kind of figure out what it is. There's 4 and 6. Both of these might be the situation. Let's talk about this. A lot of people will say 2 and 12 will subtract to get 10. You're right. But then if you subtract, you're going to get a negative 24. You can't do that. So here, I'm going to come off to the side with 4 and 6. And what do both of their signs have to be? Negative. So negative 4 and negative 6. Here's how I know that. If I'm multiplying to a positive and I'm adding to a negative, both of them must be negative, always. Okay, that's how it's going to be. And I can tell you those tricks tomorrow, how to realize those numbers. Okay, so now, with those two numbers, yesterday we'd be like, okay, the answer is x minus 4, x minus 6. Today we can't do that. We have to do something called factor by grouping. Okay, so this is the first step. I'm going to write steps just so that you know, like when you're going back in your notes, what we did. Okay, this middle piece, we now have to break it up into those two numbers that we just set. So I have negative 4x and negative 6x. Why can I do that? When I do this, negative 4 minus 6 is negative 10. It's valid. You didn't do anything wrong. You just kind of rewrote it in a better way for our situation. Bring everything else down. 3x squared came down. The plus 8 comes down. The equal comes down. And the 0 comes down. Now it's this long problem. And now we do what's called factor by grouping. Okay, so we 3x squared and a negative 4x. X. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to do exactly what I did yesterday. Divide by x right on the outside. Again, pretend this guy is not here and it's just like yesterday. Same thing. If I cover this up, this is all stuff from yesterday. Okay, now let's do our division. 3x squared divided by x gets me 3x. What's negative 4x divided by x? 4. Negative 4. Okay. The red piece is done. Awesome. Move to the blue piece. So you're just doing GCF twice. It is going to be 2, but not just 2. Negative 2. Whenever you have a negative in front of either parenthesis, you want to pull it out with, because it will just make things a lot easier for you. So here I go. I'm going to pretend that I'm doing it just like yesterday. If I were to cover this up, it's the same thing as yesterday. Negative 6x divided by negative 2 gets me what? Not just x. 3x. 8, positive 8 divided by negative 2 is negative 4. Yeah, so you might remember this now from last year. Maybe not, but maybe come back. But now look, if you get the same thing inside your parentheses, you know you did it right. If you don't, then you know that there was some small error somewhere. So with my 2 different color highlighters, this guy on the outside, these guys on the outside now become a factor. They become a group. And then these guys in the inside that are the same are now becoming a group in your factor. And then we're going to be back to what we did in the bell ringer. So in green, x minus 2 is a factor. And in pink, 3x minus 4 is a factor. And now we are back to the bell ringer. Okay, it might take a couple times for you to really, truly grasp this concept. But the more you practice it, I promise you, the better you will get at it. Okay, because really you're just doing GCF twice. That's all you're doing. Okay, now let's split them up. Let's keep going. If I asked you just to factor, you would be done. If I asked you to solve, which the directions do say here, you have to just keep going like we did in the bell ringer. So in green, I have x minus 2 is equal to 0. And in pink, I have 3x minus 4 is equal to 0. We're almost done. In green, what do I do to both sides? Add the 2 and I get equals 2. What's the first thing I do in this pink group? Add 4. That's gone. I get 3x is equal to a positive 4 and then divide. 4 over 3. And it's okay to keep it as a fraction. Now make sure you got that all written down before I say anything else. All right. Now again, if I say, hey, just factor, you would stop here. If I say to solve, you would keep going until the very end. Okay. It's a lot of steps, and I know it's hard. I'm not saying it's easy, but I think that after a lot of practice, you will be successful at it. Okay. I'm debating tomorrow if I want to move to quadratic formula or if I want to keep practicing this because it is a little bit challenging after a while, especially when you're on your own. When I'm guiding you, you guys are usually really good at it. Okay, sometimes you guys get stuck if it's on your own. Okay, so we're going to do it again. Let's practice it one more time or a couple more times. So here, let's do it one more time. Let's see. What multiplies to 2 times 8? And again, 2 times 9. Some of you will be able to just do this stuff in your head, and that's okay. Me personally, when I'm working through this on your key and stuff, I say, okay, what's going to multiply to 18 and add a negative 19? I think about that in my head, and I go right to the breaking down because I don't have to make the table. But I have practiced math for a very long time, so I'm used to that. You guys will get there, I think, eventually, but if not, that's okay. So again, what multiplies to 18 now and adds to that middle term and adds to that negative 19. This one's an easy one. 18 and 1, right? 18 divided by 1 is 18. I'm going to come over here. What's going to happen with my signs? Very good. They're both negative. So now I take that piece. If you like to put steps on your paper, this was my first step. And then this is my second step. I'm about to break it down here. Okay, here we go. This middle term becomes the numbers that you just chose. I chose these numbers. They satisfy the condition. I'm breaking down this middle term into a negative 1a and a negative 18a. Because again, when you combine those, you get 19. You get negative 19. You can do that. It's mathematically okay to do that. Bring down the 2a squared. Bring down the positive 9. Bring down the equal. Bring down the 0. All right, here we go. This is the hardest step. This step and the next one. After that, I think you guys are okay. Let's group the first two. I'll do the first one in red. He's my first group. And then my blue one will be the second group. Again, if you have to for a little bit, literally just cover that up so you don't have to think about it. Just look at the red group. What is the GCF of the red group? A. So I'm going to divide each piece by A and write it on the outside. Some people like to find the GCF of both before you do anything. That's fine too. Okay, but let's go in order. 2a squared divided by a is just 2a. And then negative 1a divided by a is what? Very good. Are we okay there? So that's like what we did yesterday. Like if you were going to do what you did yesterday where you just factored out GCF, you would be done and you would solve. But we have to keep going. We have to do the blue group too. What can I factor out of negative 18 and a positive 9? Very good, a negative 9. You always want to take out a negative if it's in the front. Okay? So that negative 9 is going to be written here. What should I get in here? You should get 2a minus 1. Let's see. Let's make sure it's right because sometimes we might have some errors. Negative 18 divided by negative 9 is 2, a positive 2a. And a positive 9 divided by negative 9 is a negative 1. So we did it right. You should be... I know that math isn't fun, but if you're doing your homework and you get this step and they are the same, you should be like, yes, like I did it right. That's kind of like a validation to you that you're getting it. Okay? All right. Highlight the piece that's the same. Highlight the piece that's on the outside. And let's write out. So in pink, what I highlighted was a minus 9. And in green, what I highlighted is 2a minus 1. Now, if I asked you just to factor, you would stop. If I asked you to solve, you would keep going. Okay? Let's see how fast you can be, though. what would my solution be for a minus 9? A is equal to what? 9. Careful with the green one. 1 over 2. So always think, you always add or subtract, then you divide. Add 1, divide by 2. Add 1, divide by 2. Okay, but I'm going to write that out for you just for the sake of notes. We add 1, and you get 2a equals 1. Then we divide by 2. And my answer is a equals 1/2. Okay. Like I said, I know this is not an easy day. It is challenging, so make sure you try your best to stay as focused as you can. Tomorrow, if you doze off and come back, it's a different story. Okay, but today is one of those days that you miss a step, you're like, whoa, where'd you get that? Cool. Questions? Okay. Let's go to the back and let's go to number 6. Let's do it again. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give you 2 minutes. That's it. I just want to see how far you can go. I don't care if you just do one step. I don't care if you get to all the way to the end. I want to see just kind of what you can do at this point. Again, maybe it's just the first step that you do. I don't know. Some people had all of it done last period. Some people had only one step done. I'm going to leave this up there for you to help kind of guide you. That was step 1. That was step 2. This is step 3. And then 4, 5. So that you know kind of what order we did it. This part? A minus 9. So a minus 9 comes from the outer pieces. The a and the minus 9. And then because of the same, so you're factoring that piece out. Yeah. Oh, okay. I just want to see what your brain could do. One of the biggest tools in math is being able to kind of look at an example and just see how far your brain can take you. Okay, if your brain can only take you to one step, fine. Maybe next time it'll be 2 steps. Maybe next time it'll be 3. But that's the best way to see if you're learning it. Okay. I'm going to slowly put up steps just to see, because some people are right about to finish, so I don't want to rush them. That's the first step. Okay. At this point, I'm just going to walk you through it. So some of you finished and you did great. I saw it. You did an awesome job. You got it all right. Some of you are on the first step still, and that's okay too. It doesn't matter how fast or slow you are at these problems. All that matters is that you're trying. Okay, so I'm going to group the first 2, and I'm going to group the second 2. In the first group, the only thing that's common between those 2 things is x. That's the only thing that's common. So I would end up dividing both of these pieces by x and writing the GCF on the outside. That would leave me with 4x plus 1, because x divided by x gives me 1, not 0. Careful with that. Now this next piece, I'm going to use green. Okay, this green piece, -5 is what's common between the 2. I can't divide by 20 because 5 divided by 20 just doesn't work. Okay, so that -5 is written on the outside. Well, then I'm left with 4x plus 1 again, which is exactly what we wanted. Now, I want to kind of explain something for everybody so that you kind of know why we do this next step. A lot of people are like, well, why is your group going to be x minus 5? I don't understand that. Okay, that's actually a really good question. I want to explain that to you. Let's just say I'm in this situation, right? Same exact situation. If I said x, if I said x, and I put like a 5 here, and then -5, and I put another 5 here. Okay, so you can see how these two pieces are the same as these two pieces. I just randomly put in something smaller there. Well, what do they both have in common? They both have a 5 in common. So I would factor that out. I would factor that out and have 5 on the outside and x minus 5 in the inside. Okay, so that's what you're doing, but you're doing it with bigger groups. That's all you're doing. So again, if you had something as small as this, is exactly what you're doing. The only difference is that I'm using bigger groups here. Okay? All right, so same thing here. I have the x minus 5, like I just explained, is a new group. And then the 4x plus 1 is my other group. We okay there? Does anyone not understand why I'm doing that one step? All right, in green, what is your solution going to be? X equals 5. Very nice. This next one, I'm going to write it out for you just because I think some people need to see it. What do you get over there? Very, 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 very close. It's 1/4. It's -1/4. Here's why. Because you subtract 1, and then you divide by 4. So just be careful with your signs, that's all.
Weren't you minus by 1?
We did -1.
Plus 1? No, weren't you plus 1?
Right here? If it's currently a +1, you would subtract 1 to the right side. Does that make sense? Like it's currently a +1, so I would subtract it to the right side.
I don't know what I did, but you got. But they're supposed to be negative.
What do you mean? Let me come to yours. You can do it different ways to get the same answer. So this one right here is a +1. That is supposed to be a +1. So, yep. Okay, so a negative and a negative make a positive. And then this guy was supposed to be a positive. That's all. Just a side error. Yeah. So let me explain something to you that I think what you're talking about back there. If you chose, I'm going to show you something kind of crazy and kind of fast. You ready for this? You could have had this as well. This work could have been the same as mine, but you get the same answer. So do you see the only difference between these two? Is I wrote my -20 first, and I wrote my x first. It doesn't matter which way you write it, you will still come out with the same exact answer. You can see they're the same answers. Okay, so your work might look differently than mine, but always will result in the same answer, okay? So never like erase your work if your answer is the same to match my work. Because again, if you switch these two, that's okay. You're 100% able to do that. You just have to do it in a different order then, okay? Questions on that? Now we go to the easy stuff. So we were at the hard stuff. Now we're on the easy stuff. So let's go to number 7. Kind of. Can you modify it a little bit more?
Square root it.
You have to square root it. You're not going to just get 8 though.
X equals 8.
It is going to be x equals 8. Does anyone know what else it's going to be? The calculator will tell you 8. You're right. I'm just asking if anyone knows what else it could be.
I don't know.
The calculator won't tell you.
Here, let me see.
X squared equals.
Okay, so you are right. I take the square root. You're 100% correct because that's the opposite. And I would get x equals 8. However, it's not just 8. It's going to be plus or minus 8.
Oh, yeah.
And let me explain why so that you are understanding that. If I do 8 squared in the calculator, you get 64. If I do negative 8 squared in the calculator, you also get 64. But your calculator, if you type in the square root of 64, you will just get a positive 8 because it doesn't know that you're solving it yourself. Okay, like they're just putting it into the calculator. So when you're physically drawing that square root, then it has to be a plus or minus 8. Okay, questions on that? Not bad though. That's it. That's the answer. It's probably the easiest thing we've done since we started school. Okay, I want you to go to number 10. Now you always want to isolate the variable first. What do I got to do to both sides? Yeah. Very good. So now again, when you physically draw in your square root, so in purple here, I'm going to physically draw in my square root. That goes away, which is really nice. And you did say 12, and I did hear plus or minus, so good job. The square root of 144 is 12, but when you're solving and you're taking the square root, it's plus or minus because both of them would satisfy this equation. If you put negative 12 here, you would still get the same answer. That's why. We're only going to do one more. Okay, we're going to do 11, and I'm going to highlight this piece. Your squared piece needs to be alone before you can square root it. That's why over here we had to add the 144 first. Okay, so I have to add 9, and in black I get x minus 1 all squared is equal to 9. And now that it's all isolated, I can take the square root of both sides. So square root. When you take the square root, the squared goes away, but not the x plus 1. Okay, or the x minus 1, I'm sorry. X minus 1 is equal to what? I'm careful what you say.
3.
Oh, there you go. I was waiting. I knew it would pop in their head. Plus or minus 3. When you physically draw in the square root yourself, so if I gave you a problem, per se, over here, and just was like, hey, what's that answer? Then it would just be 9. But if you actually physically draw that square root in, that's when it's plus or minus. Because the square root of negative 81 would not work. What's up?
Wouldn't you have to move them like that?
You would. And now, before you do that, I'm going to highlight something here. This piece needs to be broken up because there's 2 answers. One's a positive 3 and one's a negative 3. So you have to be careful. So what do I mean by that? X minus 1 is equal to a positive 3 and x minus 1 is equal to a negative 3. So you broke this up into a positive 3 and to a negative 3. And now it's an easy problem. Because when you add 1 to both sides here, you get x equals what? 4. When you add 1 to this side, what do you get? Negative 2.